11:29 is your time. Super Tuesday gave new life to some Democratic presidential candidates and ended bids for other. ABC political director Rick Klein is joining us live from New York City. Good morning to you, Rick.
Hey, Ashley, good to be with you.
Yeah, you know, I, for one, not surprised at all that former Vice President Joe Biden took Texas. But you said you were a little surprised by that.
I didn't see that one coming, I have to say. I thought Bernie Sanders was so strong in the state, but as it turns out, those endorsements, including from Beto O'Rourke and Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, that big rally up in Dallas, it all contributed to the sense of momentum around this, and Biden was able to win someplace that was a genuine surprise for a lot of folks. I think a lot of folks thought that Sanders would do well in California. I thought he had strongholds in places like Austin that could power him forward in Texas, but that goes down as, to me, probably the biggest upset of the evening.
Well, you know, Austin, obviously, they did support Bernie Sanders. I'll tell you, Travis County, he won Travis County, but that wasn't enough to knock out Houston or Dallas, some of those other big Texas cities. I will say I was surprised that Bloomberg didn't have a stronger showing than what he did, given the amount of money and time he spent in the Lone Star State, then eventually ending his bid. Your thoughts there?
And all those ads. I mean, you couldn't turn on a TV and not see Michael Bloomberg for president. And I think, look, if this had happened a few weeks ago before those debate performances, maybe it's different. If it happened at a time where Joe Biden didn't look like he was regaining strength, maybe his numbers would be different. The Bloomberg campaign made a calculation that they could benefit from chaos in the party. And it turned out that a lot of the chaos got cleaned up by the time we got to Super Tuesday. So when Texans voted yesterday, you had pretty clear choice. It seemed like a two-person race. And that, I think, is a dynamic that Joe Biden benefited quite a bit from.
I want to hear your thoughts on Senator Elizabeth Warren. She's still kind of holding in there, hasn't officially dropped out of the race, though, even though it seems as though this is a Biden-Sanders battle.
It's hard for me to imagine what the argument is, having lost her home state, having lost in Oklahoma pretty badly as well, where she was born and raised. She looks like she's going to finish behind Mayor Bloomberg when it comes to votes cast on Super Tuesday. So I don't see what the path forward is. Clearly, she can work on her own time frame. She's earned that right. But there aren't many people I'm talking to that expect her to still be a candidate by the time the next round of voting gets going next Tuesday.
You hardly hear this name, but there was a fifth candidate, Tulsi Gabbard, still in the race. Still hasn't dropped out yet. Your thoughts there? Like, why is she still holding on?
Well, she won a delegate, actually, in American Samoa, where she was born. So maybe that is a reason to get out now. I mean, she has talked about her campaign more in terms of a movement than a campaign. Clearly, she has zero path at the nomination, but she's been running on her own terms. She's been railing against the establishment, kind of a Bernie light. She was very much a supporter of Bernie Sanders 4 years ago. She might follow Bernie's lead a bit, and I just can't imagine her being a factor anywhere.
So as we look forward, and this seems to become a race between Sanders and Biden, it's sort of two different ideologies within the Democratic Party that they stand for, right?
Yeah, I think the different attitudes, the different leadership styles, different values, different goals, different policy positions. It is the big fight. It's the fight that I think a lot of people were expecting for a long time between Biden and Sanders. It took a while to get down to that head-to-head, but I think in all likelihood that's what we're looking at from here on out, with Bloomberg dropping out and with Warren very much having to reassess where she is in this race.
You know, I do want to ask you, I kind of want to go back to Bloomberg for a minute because, again, he just spent so much money and energy in this. Do you think it was too soon for him to drop out, given we're going to have, you know, Super Tuesday 2, if you will, in a few weeks?
I think he recognized that his strategy was built on breaking through on the Super Tuesday, where 40% of the delegates are awarded by the end of the night. And to have nothing to show for that investment after $200 million was spent, to have something like a dozen delegates is an embarrassment. And I think a legitimate concern of his is that if the progressives unite behind Bernie Sanders and he is the last holdout in that more moderate part of the party, that you're holding down Joe Biden. He immediately endorsed Biden, says he'll do anything on his behalf, and I think has made clear that he was looking at the same numbers everyone else was.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. We were talking to some of the Republicans here in Austin. They say they would love to see Bernie Sanders win the nomination because they are sure as all get out that President Donald Trump could defeat him. Your thoughts on who can actually take on Trump?
I think the matchups are different. They potentially put different states, different constituencies into play, but I think it's clear that Republicans and President Trump were excited about the Bernie Sanders possibility, remain excited about it, and running against a Democratic Socialist presents a pretty easy playbook, and it certainly would have been a comfort zone and would be a comfort zone for President Trump.
Yeah, but do you think he has what it takes, Sanders versus Biden?
She's going to blow out.
I'm sorry, do you think it could be Sanders versus Biden?
I'm sorry, on who could take on Trump?
I think, look, it's different matchups. I think Biden has an opportunity to reach voters in the middle that Sanders doesn't. Sanders, though, has the mass appeal of voters that he could energize. And I think that just creates different matchups in different places.
All right. Thank you so much, Rick. We appreciate you joining us this morning.